Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to our monthly Real Mushrooms for Pets Facebook Live. My name is Joni Kamlet, and I'm the director of the Pet and Practitioner departments, and I'm here with my mentor and colleague and friend.
And I'm Dr. Rob Silver, Chief Veterinary Officer for Real Mushrooms, and we're excited tonight to answer your questions.
Yeah, and I'm particularly excited tonight because we're going to be talking a little bit about quality. And I mean, honestly, the most important thing to consider when deciding on a mushroom product is what is the quality of the product that you're going to be using. And I think if I can say, I know for me, and I'm sure for you, Doc Rob, this is why we work for Real Mushrooms, because we think that the quality of this product line is exceptional. And so I guess my question to you, Doc Rob, is why? Like, what is it about our products? Let's start off this quality talk by what is it that makes our products so wonderful?
Well, I mean, first of all, we grow them under very clean standards. They are all certified USDA organic, or certified organic by USDA standards. We also are we do triple analyses, of our products to ensure that they're free of heavy metals, pesticides, herbicides, and microbial contamination, those sorts of things. So as a result, our products are very pure, and we serve a lot of practitioners, both human and veterinary, and we provide them with their products. And there's a reason why they choose our company to select their products, because for a practitioner, it's particularly important that there be quality, that there be control over the quality, there be consistency of the potency, and that it be absolutely free from contamination. And our products meet those standards. In fact, they meet those standards so much that Consumer Labs has awarded us, I don't know the exact name of the award, Joni, maybe you can say that, but 3 years in a row, and they use third-party testing to test our quality, and Consumer Labs say, we are number one. We are great. But that's not enough, because in the veterinary world, we also are working with another organization that ensures quality of products. It's called the National Animal Supplement Council, and we've just been audited and have achieved member status, which means that soon on our labels of our new production runs of bottles, we'll have a little seal on it, which is kind of like the Good Housekeeping seal, but it's from the NASC, which indicates that they've done third-party inspection of our manufacturing facilities to ensure they meet FDA, CGMP standards. They've done random testing of our products to see if they meet label claim, and we are in compliance with all of the FDA suggested requirements for labeling pets and for manufacturing pets. So we're very proud of the quality of our products. I've even done a study recently, which I've published, looking at the quality assurance of pet mushroom products, of 10 mushroom products I pulled off the internet that said they had turkey tail in them. And so we're always looking for new ways to be sure that we can provide confidence to our consumers that what they're taking is what we say it is. We're absolutely transparent. You want to say something, Joni?
Yeah, actually, I have some questions, because I love that you're saying that. First of all, the Consumer Lab, I think they rated us top mushroom supplement 3 years in a row. So we're their number one mushroom supplement. And Consumer Lab, for those that don't know, it's like the Consumer Reports of the supplement company. They don't take any advertising, so they don't take money from advertisers to promote their products or anything like that. But the question I had for you, Doc Rob, is can you describe what third-party testing means? Because it's so important, or independent testing, so that people understand that.
Yep. In-house testing versus third-party testing.
Yeah.
So most companies will have some analytical capabilities themselves, because they have to do in-house analyses and understand what they're producing, what the potency is, so they can create a final product that is what they want. But ultimately, in order for the consumer to have confidence that those analyses are correct, it should be done by a third-party lab, and that third-party lab needs to have certifications with the AOAC, which is an association of analytical laboratories, and there's a certain certification number they have to have, 17025, like you really want to know. So that's what we do. We make sure, because it's like you got the fox in the hen house when you're doing your own testing, and they're always, and when there's some opportunity to tweak things a little bit to make a little more money, some companies might do that, and so we don't. It's very important to us that the products that we produce are very repeatable and very clean, and you should be comfortable with that fact.
Yeah, and the fact that this, both consumer labs and NASC, that third-party testing means they took our products, they sent them out to an independent laboratory to make sure that what we're claiming on our label, as far as like beta-glucan content or actually what's in the product, is it actually turkey tail in the product? Is it actually cordyceps? It's actually there. And so it's just really rewarding. It's a wonderful feeling to me, I know, and I imagine for you to work for a company that, that can make this, that can be confident that what we're offering meets those standards. I have another question for you, Doc Rob. What about because I know there was we just received some new data about stability testing. Can you explain what that is and what this new data is?
Well, when you look at a bottle of a supplement, you want to know when is it still potent? Yeah. And so companies are not required by law, but suggested highly that when it's manufactured, that the manufacturer prints on the bottle in an indelible way, either the date of manufacturing, but also the date at which they considered it to be too old to have potency. But how do you know how long that is? Well, they do something called stability testing. And certainly, we could leave the product in a room at a certain temperature for 3 years and then test it, and that would be fine, but it's we're making new batches all the time. So what they do is they do an aging study in which they put it into an oven at a low temperature that would mimic the oxidative rate of a couple of years. They've got algorithms and ways of measuring this, so they know at what temperature, what period of time it corresponds to 1 year's worth of aging, 2 years worth of aging, 3 years. And a lot of companies don't do this, because it's expensive. They make guesstimates. They say, well, let's see, someone else said it was this, or our certificate of analysis from the manufacturer said this has this. But certificates of analysis from manufacturers oftentimes don't come from third-party labs. They're also a situation where oftentimes the manufacturer may doctor the certificate of analysis to make it look better, so you're liable to buy it. And so we do actual real life stability testing. And so when we say this has a lifespan of 2 years or 3 years, it does.
And our new lifespan is
3 years.
3 years. So that kind of leads to an exciting offer. I think it's an exciting offer. So our products have a best use by date that's 2 years from when they're manufactured, but they're actually good for another year. And you all might have seen we have Chaga and Cordyceps on sale right now. We're transitioning those pet products out and moving to blends, although we still have the human products. But just starting tonight, we are offering a 3-for-1. So for the price of one product, for $19.95, you can get 2 bottles of Chaga and 1 bottle of Cordyceps. And Jordan, our wonderful customer service manager behind the curtain, is posting the information on the bundles. But I really encourage people to jump on this Cordyceps, and so you get 2 bottles of Chaga, 2 bottles of Chaga, 1 bottle of Cordyceps for $19.95. Oh my gosh, that's less than $10 a bottle. What is that, about $6.50 a bottle? So I would definitely go for it. And I don't know, maybe do you want to share a little bit, Doc Rob, about like chaga and cordyceps, like all the wonderful benefits? I know I'm like firing questions at you tonight.
Well, I would suggest you stock up on the cordyceps if you've got a kitty cat. I think cordyceps is extremely good for kitties, protecting their kidneys and other things like that. The chaga is a good product to consider if your pet has atopic dermatitis because it has such strong antihistaminic properties. We've also seen some studies that support the use of chaga with bladder infections. That's not the same as bladder crystals. And of course, chaga has good anti-cancer properties. It was written up about in Cancer Ward by Alexander Solzhenitsyn. It's got good upper GI issues, good for digestion. The chaga that we use is a 1-to-1, which means it's got a bunch of great microbiome-friendly fiber, and so does the cordyceps as well.
Yeah.
So it is a good deal, and we started out manufacturing these products thinking there would be more demand for them amongst the pet space, but we really kind of put the cart before the horse because we hadn't educated you guys enough about the value, and now this product run that we've done is outdated. We've decided not to go back to the small capsules because we've got the large capsules and we've got the bulk powders, and then I'm also creating unique formulas that have these mushroom extracts in them for a variety of functions. We have our Daily Dawg. We've got something new coming out. We've got something new coming out. We've got something new coming out. And we're going to be using those powders and those mushrooms in them because they're very valuable mushroom species to use for a variety of conditions.
Yeah, absolutely. But in the meantime, the chaga, it really is, what do you call it? The Swiss Army knife of mushrooms is how I've heard you refer to
I probably did, but that was early on in my understanding of mushrooms, and I feel like I've learned so much. And quite honestly, I think every mushroom.
They're all the Swiss Army knife. It's true. It's true. And Beth's asking why are we stopping making the cordyceps for pets? And we just mentioned it, but we'll repeat it again. It's just, we're moving more to blends. So the cordyceps is still going to be available. We have the cordyceps in the powder, in the pouches, and then we have it in what we call the human version, but we should just really say we have the large capsules now instead of the small capsules.
And you got the powder too. And cordyceps is extremely palatable. It's more palatable than any other mushroom there. So Beth, I'd be getting that pouch because I think that's the way to go.
Absolutely. So we still have the cordyceps there's probably by the end of the year, there's going to be a product, Doc Rob is working on a few really interesting mushroom blends. And I wouldn't be surprised if at least one of them has cordyceps in it. But what we're finding is that pet parents like products that are more condition-based. It's easy to I want a product that's going to support my allergies. So maybe, like a product specifically for allergies that has mushrooms in it might be just more user-friendly, I guess. But meanwhile, we have, we're always going to have the chaga. We're always going to have the cordyceps available, just not in the small pet capsules. And you can take advantage of this 3-for-1 sale that we're having for $19.99. I feel like let's make a deal. 1 bottle of cordyceps and 2 bottles of chaga. So they'll still be available. So you ready to move on to some more questions? I see Giselle has a question in the chat here. Is it true that oil mushrooms is more potent than the powder? I'm assuming that means, I'm assuming, Giselle, that you mean like oil, meaning like a liquid or a tincture is more potent. So Doc Rob, what say you about that?
Well, the powder is more potent because you can simply pack more mushroom into a dry powder than dissolved into a liquid. It's unlikely you could even get, half of the volume of liquid amount of mushroom in there. And so what you're going to see is that the liquids, which may be more convenient for some individuals, are really better for smaller animals because you can't achieve a really high dose without getting a fairly large volume, 5 cc's or more, 10 cc's, depending what you're treating. So that's one reason why Real Mushrooms has decided to stick with the powders, because that's really where we are best at. And the powders are extremely flexible for your
Yeah.
use.
Yeah.
An eighth of a teaspoon for a very small animal is not a lot of powder and should mix in very well with palatable wet food, that sort of thing. So.
Yeah. And Giselle, I actually just wrote a blog about tinctures versus powders. And Jordan, I'm thinking maybe you can drop that in the chat there, which kind of goes over the pros and cons of powders versus tinctures. And so maybe you'd be interested in reading that and kind of coming to whatever conclusion you come to. And Rob, disclaimer time.
Of course. Well, and I didn't say it before that last one because that was just about products versus that. But
yeah.
I just want to say I'm happy to answer all your questions tonight. But please understand that I don't have a direct relationship, a direct medical relationship with you and your pet. So the information I'm going to be giving for the safety of your pet is going to be a bit more generic, but I will be helpful. So, but we don't have a doctor-patient relationship, and I just want to be clear about that for ethical reasons.
Yeah. Thank you. Next question. My Aussie Shepherd is 40 pounds, has lung damage from parasites, also liver problems. What would be the best for her? She is also on Vetmedin and Avanti liver enzymes. I'm not familiar with those. Are you, Rob?
Yeah, Vetmedin is pimabendin. Avanti, I don't know, but it's probably a milk thistle, denimarin type of formula. This is a complicated problem, and we don't necessarily have studies that support the use of this mushroom or that. But I would suggest reishi for this. And reishi is a pretty bitter mushroom. We're just talking about capsules and powders, and so it's your pet may like the powder, but probably not. So I would look at the large sized capsules that we have of reishi, because it'll help with the liver, and it'll help with the lungs and lung damage and reduce inflammation, and is good for the heart, because that was something I had to consider, is what's good for the heart, what's good for the liver, what's good for the lungs. So I think that as a single mushroom would be fine. You could also try the 5 Defenders, which has the reishi in it, and 4 other very potent mushrooms. But I'm very fond of the reishi, and it has remarkable powers. So I would suggest it.
What do you think about cordyceps to address the lung damage, or do you think it's the 5 Defenders or reishi is going to be better?
I think cordyceps is fine. I mean, these aren't, this is my best shot at an answer.
Yeah.
I don't really know the animal, and I don't know what kind of lung damage it is, and what parasites they were, what exactly are the liver problems, and it can be complicated.
You're not a mind reader, Rob. I know you have so many other wonderful qualities. There you go.
I'm thinking that you're going to
great. The next question. My dog was recently diagnosed with a rare form of leukemia. I've given him 5 Defenders with his food for years now. Any other recommendations to now add in to help support him through chemo?
Okay. Well, I think looking at the dosage of the 5 Defenders is probably a really good place to start, and see if we can bump that up some more. I mean, there's very few other mushrooms than those 5 that are, that potent and are considered to be pretty good for cancers of the immune system. So I would stick with the 5 Defenders, or you could even go to just straight reishi for that. All mushrooms will help to support him through the chemo, though, in terms of what it will do to the bone marrow and the level of red cells and white cells. So I think those are good. I think looking at the dosage is what you need to do.
Yeah. And we wish you the best with your pup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So here's the next question. It says mycelial biomass on the bottle from a different company. What does that mean? Does that mean it's grain? Is that grain?
That is grain. Yes, that's the code word they use when they're talking about growing their mycelium on grain, and they try to convince you that they've got mushrooms in there as well, which they may have one or two. But based on the analyses of that study that I mentioned earlier that I did with pet products, these companies that say they have mycelial biomass on the label, when you read the beta glucan level, it's maybe a fifth or a tenth of what we would get with an actual mushroom, and the amount of starch from the grain is huge. So unless you're looking for that, avoid those kinds of products.
Can you maybe explain a little bit what the mycelium is, and for somebody that's just coming in that doesn't understand what question?
You get so on top of it, you forget, that.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm here for, Doc Rob.
No, you're good at that. You're good at that too. Thank you. Mushrooms have a life cycle, and it starts with the spores, which are like seeds. And many people liken the mushroom cycle to a tree, like an apple tree. Although mushrooms aren't plants, they're mushrooms. But the apple tree has roots, and the roots are where it gains nourishment. Well, the mycelium is like the roots of the apple tree, because the mycelium eats its way through the material that it's on with digestive enzymes, digesting and absorbing the nutrients and growing. But once the mycelium has reached a certain point and environmental conditions change, then the mycelium reorganizes itself and sends up a mushroom. Amazing. And the reason it's sending up the mushroom is because the mushroom produces these things called spores, which are actually the way that the mushroom reproduces. And the mushroom produces male and female spores, or positive and negative spores. When the spores are dropped from the mushroom, they then germinate into these little tubes, and two compatible tubes have to join. When they join, they then form this mass of mycelium, which is kind of like a rat's nest of all these little thin tubes. And that mycelium will then repeat the cycle by nourishing itself in the substrate and then organizing into a mushroom. And then once it's a mushroom, producing the spores, then dropping the spores, then they repeat the cycle into the mycelium. So it's an interesting cycle, but there's a lot of misunderstanding about the use of the word mushroom, and many people will use the word mushroom to actually indicate the entire life cycle, the fungal life cycle, when in fact the mushroom is just one part of that life cycle. It's also called the fruiting body because, hey, it's like the apple tree. It's like the fruit, and the seed inside is the spore. So the mushroom's like the fruit and the seed inside. Anyway, so how did I do on that one, Joni?
You did good. I'm just going to add a little bit to that. So this mycelium that Doc Rob just described, it grows faster. It takes a long time for that mushroom to pop up above ground, whereas the mycelium grows relatively fast. So what companies sometimes do is they don't wait for the mushroom to pop up above ground, or maybe just a few have kind of popped up, and they take that mycelium, which is growing in grain, and they dry it and grind it up, and they call it a mushroom and sell it as a mushroom product. And so often it will say mycelium on grain on the label, or mycelial biomass on the label. But in some cases, it doesn't even list that on the label. Like the study that Doc Rob's describing, some of the mushroom products that we found were high in like starch or alpha glucans as opposed to beta glucans, didn't even list that they had grain in the product. And that's, that's a lack of transparency. And that's what, it was great that Doc Rob did the study and that we're calling it out. We're not, it's up to the consumer to decide what product they want to use. And I've heard from many people that use these mycelium products and get results. I'm not saying they're bad products. I'm saying there's a lack of transparency in calling it a mushroom when it's actually a mycelium. It would be like saying that apple tree that Doc Rob described. It'd be like if I said, hey, Doc Rob, you want an apple? And I give you the root of an apple tree. It's not what the consumer is expecting when they buy a mushroom product. How'd I do there, Doc Rob?
I think you checked all the boxes.
Okay, there you go. Let's move. Oh, Jen Bavasso's here. Hi, Jen. I'm very active on Facebook. Jen, you're gonna have to list your group that you're so active in. I think it's your group, but I follow it and I'm blanking on the name of it. But Jeanette has a question. My 10-year-old intact female has a small mammary lump. I'm feeding turkey tail mushroom. Would 5 defenders be better?
I don't think there's a way of really knowing one way or the other, but there is a synergy with multiple mushroom formulas, and I think the real issue is, giving enough of it. So turkey tail would be fine to continue with that as long, and perhaps bumping up the dosage. And you could try switching to the 5 defenders. It's hard to know from your question whether you were feeding the turkey tail before the lump arose or not. But I think both of them would be good for this situation. I'd avoid something like cordyceps, for instance, which can have an impact on estradiol levels. With a mammary tumor, we might not want to do that.
Oh, interesting.
I think as far as we're looking at the turkey tail or the 5 defenders, I don't think you can go wrong with either. Just make sure it's a substantial enough dosage.
Right. Good point. Jen, but by the way, the name of her group is Formative, and I recommend it. There's always some really good information that Jen posts in there, and it's a nice, lively group. But Jen's asking, other than lion's mane, any other mushrooms for DM, degenerative myelopathy or pain?
Well, and Joni could tell her story about degenerative myelopathy. We haven't seen a lot of clinical support for its use with degenerative myelopathy, perhaps more for cognitive issues. But I think that it certainly has the right stuff. If anything, could help with degenerative myelopathy, and maybe we're not getting in there early enough. Maybe we're not using a high enough dosage. But when you say about DM and pain, I would say, why don't you add reishi to that? This is kind of my reishi.
Yeah. And another one, I'm wondering, and by the way, I have gotten some feedback on the lion's mane for DM. There are people that say it's helping. So, but my experience is it goes up and down with degenerative myelopathy. There can be some improvement. You think you're doing great, and then there's a setback. But there are people that seem to be finding benefit for their DM dogs, which kind of makes me wonder. It's very hard to diagnose DM. Maybe it's not actually degenerative. It looks like DM, and it's something else that the dog's responding to related to the nerves. But I'm wondering about tremella. Might be, because tremella also has a positive effect on the nerve growth factor. So might be worth trying tremella.
That's a good idea, Joni. Thank you.
Yeah. What is our next question from Janie? My 13-year-old lab has been diagnosed with PLN, which
losing nephropathy, with bleaking protein out of the kidneys.
Thank you. Which mushrooms would be most beneficial for him?
I'd probably go with the cordyceps because of its support of the kidneys. That's what I would do.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
Yeah, it's challenging, and diet can be can help to solve that as well. Looking at the protein levels that you're feeding, and if you are losing protein through the kidneys, you want to replace it somewhere. And so there's a balance, and it really needs a veterinarian who has nutritional knowledge to help you with that.
Right. Thanks. Giselle says, I give my 3 dogs real mushrooms. I give them 5 defenders, cordyceps, and reishi. Because one of my dogs has gastritis, my others have really bad allergies and joint issues of hip dysplasia. So sounds like you got a good protocol going there.
5 defenders for the allergies. I'm not sure about which one you'd be. Well, I guess 5 defenders because it's got the chaga in it for gastritis, and then the allergies, 5 defenders, and joint issues, probably the cordyceps and reishi.
Yeah.
Nice, and you're using the real mushrooms, not the oil type of tincture, Giselle. So that's cool.
Yeah, that's great. And Jordan, would you mind posting the link to the tremella for Jen? She's asking to what other mushrooms we had recommended for potentially for the DM. Thank you. And then the next question from Grace. Hello, my 22-pound Boston Terrier pug was diagnosed with was just diagnosed with cancer from a tumor that was removed. A friend told me about turkey tail mushrooms. I purchased some from your site in capsules. What dosage? Time to pull out the old calculator, Rob.
Oh, it's up here.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Sorry to hear about your pup.
Yeah. So with cancer, we try to give a pretty high dosage, and with a lot of dogs, it's good to take your time ramping that dosage up. Tumor's been removed, so that's good. There might be some tumor cells left, and that's where we want to get this turkey tail in there to deal with whatever's left and to help the immune system not allow that to happen again. So yeah, and I think the turkey tail is a good choice. And if you've got the capsules, you probably got the pet capsules because those are still available. So, and each pet capsule would be good for about. So I would do one capsule twice daily to start, and I would do that for a week. Make sure everything's okay. I mean, we don't generally see side effects, but if you do, you don't. You want to know they're there. And then the next week, I would do 2 capsules twice daily and see how she does with that. And I think that would probably be a good place to go. We could go as high as 3. If the tumor was still there, I'd have you give higher. But I think this is reasonable, worthwhile trying.
Yeah, we wish you the best. Common sense. I love that name. Cannot thank you enough for bringing joy back into my seniors' minds. It's like turning the light on. I believe Happy to Be Here is due to giving Lions Mane. Took 4 to 6 months to see the difference. That makes me so happy.
Yeah.
I love hearing that.
A lot of people say that the light goes back on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that.
Mm-hmm. Reishi.
Giselle's asking about her little dog that has a mild heart murmur. And so
Reishi's good for the heart. So,
yeah. Awesome. So yeah, Reishi, there you go, Reishi. Janet is asking, my 14-year-old dog, 30 pounds, had a mass removed from his mouth, which was an amyloblastoma or papillary squamous cell carcinoma. I started him on 1 capsule of turkey tail. Any other suggestions? Maybe higher dose?
Higher dose.
Yeah.
Dose. Yeah. I think the turkey tail is fine to use for this application, but depending which size of capsule you're using, we might have you give more or less. But 30 pounds, I would do 1 or 2 capsules twice daily. Again, the tumor's been removed, but it's really hard to get wide excisions from oral surgery. So there probably are still some tumor cells there. So it's a good time to get started and treat it hard and heavy while the disease is still in the microscopic stage.
Yeah. Yep. Good point. Our next question. I give my dog 5 defenders. Would it help to up the dosage during the outdoor allergy season?
If your dog has outdoor allergies, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can safely double or even triple that.
Yeah.
I would use it more to effect because of the antihistaminic value of the reishi and the chaga. You should see some symptomatic relief at the dosage that's working. So just work your way up gradually. See if you
Right. Absolutely. And it's a good time to remind people that mushrooms are basically like functional foods. They're not pharmaceutical drugs, of course, but they're also not herbs, and are relatively safe in higher doses. Am I saying that correctly, Doc Rob? That we can, it's. I know a lot of people when they're first starting out, it's like they've never used mushrooms and they're worried, like, oh my gosh, I gave too much, or I have this capsule and my dog is in between this capsule amount and that, and the next capsule amount up. It's really totally fine. You can, you're at, you might, if you give too much too fast, you might cause some gastric distress, also known as diarrhea. But other than that, they're generally recognized as safe. Beth, thank you. So Beth just wants to thank us for these monthly webcasts that are very helpful. Thank you. We enjoy them. Yeah. So that's our intention, is to try to help. Jennifer, interesting. Jennifer is asking if we can direct her to any information involving using mushrooms for birds. specifically allergies?
I don't know. I've not seen anything for birds with mushrooms. As I've gone through the literature, and I'm there a lot. Um, you know,
Yeah.
you can search Google as easily as we can, but if you have birds with allergies, there's no reason why a mushroom wouldn't work for them. And because we're talking about specifically allergies, we'd be talking about the five defenders. The question is, how can we make that powder palatable enough for a bird to accept it? And generally that involves something sweet and fruity, fruit juice or fruit mash or applesauce. Oftentimes depends, of course, on what birds you're talking about and what their tastes are and what they generally will eat. I do have expertise with avian, but really that question is the first time ever I've heard it. So
Yeah.
thank you for the question. It's kind of got my mind thinking.
Yeah. And I've got a little feedback. I mean, I don't have the answer there, but I will tell you someone who does use mushrooms with their birds, and that's Dr. Karen Becker. She's I've exchanged emails with her where she's talked about treating birds with mushrooms. So I don't know, maybe if you're in, they have Karen and Rodney have their Inside Scoop group, and now their new Forever Dog book is coming out, and they've got a Forever Dog Learning Lab. Might be a good question to ask her in there, because I don't know how available she is to get a hold of otherwise, but she does use mushrooms with birds. So Kath, so the mushrooms that we recommend for outdoor allergies, Doc Rob, would be?
That would be the five defenders, or that would be reishi or chaga.
Yeah.
Five defenders contains both of those, but both reishi and chaga have these terpene molecules in them that help to stabilize mast cell membranes, and it's the mast cells that contain the histamine, which creates the symptoms that we see with allergies. So
yeah,
they're not actually antihistamines, but they function like.
Yeah. The Daily Dawg. Yes, we've got a lot. Will you please make a bigger jar for big dogs? We are talking about that. Common sense. This our newest product, Daily Dawg. It's just, as I said many times, Doc Rob's masterpiece formulation. Such a wonderful formula you put together there, Doc Rob. And it's definitely. I mean, I have a small dog. She's 24 pounds, and so that bottle, the Daily Dawg, I'm actually giving it to her and my cat Carmen, and it lasts. But for a large dog, it's not going to last so long. So we're definitely looking at making it in a larger size as well. So we hear you.
When I formulate a product, I try to make it such that there's enough there for a month's supply for a 50-pound dog. So in Joni's case, with her small dog and cat, it's working.
Yeah.
In your case, and in the case of others that we've also heard from, it's not enough. So we've got to figure that out. We have to work with our manufacturer. We've got to try to make it so that the cost isn't too escalated with the increased volume, and kind of make it work for everybody. So bear with us. We're on it.
Yeah. But thank you. We do appreciate the feedback. Yes, cats can have Daily Dawg. I just saw that comment pop in at the bottom there. Yeah, my cat loves it. I had to put her outside for this live because it's dinner time, and she'll knock the jar. It's up in my on my shelf there, and she'll knock it down and try to open it if I don't get to it soon enough. So Jen says, my friend's dog has hydrocephalus, Lions Mane. Any others? She's only 6 months old, a boxer.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah,
because that's a physical congenital defect.
Yeah.
I think Lions Mane certainly would be a place to try. I really don't know how I could give you any credible advice, because I just don't have an idea of how I would treat that otherwise.
Yeah. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Giselle's asking, can I give mushrooms to my dogs for the rest of their life? The vet recommended me to give them for 6 months daily and then 3 times a week.
Well, once you've given mushrooms for a regular period of time, the beta glucans in the mushrooms, at least, create something that we call trained immunity, which means that the immune function, the immune benefit to the mushrooms actually continues even when the mushrooms aren't being taken. So I think this is not a bad strategy, actually. And but yes, they can take the mushrooms for the rest of their life, depending why we're giving them to them. And your dogs do have a number of problems. So, you certainly can try what your vet recommends. In fact, always listen to your vet. But you may find that when you start to reduce it, that some of the symptoms that you were appreciating were gone or diminished or less, come back more. So, it's worthwhile checking out. It's safe to do. And if you can get the same benefits for less administration, of course, why not?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That's what I love about the mushrooms is you don't like if you miss a day, that trained innate immunity is going to kick in. Next question. Please explain the serving size of the powders. If I ordered 40,
I can.
why does the bag say 1,000 milligrams? Okay.
So there are certain standards that we have to attend to when we put labeling on a bag, on a pouch, or on a label based on FDA and industry standards. And so this 1,000 milligrams is what we call a serving size. And the pouches are all labeled for human use. They're not labeled for pet use at all. So for human, we're recommending as a basic starting place to begin 1,000 milligrams, which might be two 500 milligram capsules, or half a teaspoon of powder. Now, for a human who has serious disease, that's not nearly enough. And we would want to increase that substantially as well. But 45 grams of mushrooms contain, if you're getting 1,000 milligrams as a serving size, gives you and doing it once a day, it gives you a 45-day supply. And one reason we do the 45-day supply is that we kind of figure, you get a month's worth, and then you've got 2 weeks to remember to reorder some more before it runs out. So that's kind of the reasoning behind 45 grams versus just 30 grams. But we try to be as accurate and transparent with our labeling on the bags, but we have to follow these templates, and they can be confusing to the consumer.
Yeah, great question. Thank you. Next question. What mushrooms are recommended for a dog in remission from B-cell lymphoma?
Mm-hmm. I like the 5 defenders for something like that, especially, thank goodness now your dog's in remission. Probably went through that whole CHOP protocol and hopefully it did okay. Obviously did okay with that. Hopefully it stays that way. Lymphoma is very treatable with chemotherapy agents, but usually the remission doesn't last as long as we'd like it to. So this is a good time for you to get started. This is a good time for you to get started working your way up to a pretty decent amount to give for the size of your dog, to try to see if we can keep it in remission.
So in this case, would you, because I know you like to go levels of whether it's like a maintenance dose or a more significant issue or aggressive, would this be like the significant level, like, aggressive? You'd go aggressive.
Aggressive, but aggressive in the aggressive, I've got sort of a range from like 10 mgs to 30 mgs. I'd go at the low end at the 10 mgs, which is still pretty good. So that would mean, depending on the size of the animal, perhaps a quarter teaspoon per 15 pounds of body weight twice daily.
Okay.
I don't know what your pet weighs, but that should be fairly close to being good. And if your dog's tolerating that much and accepting the taste and everything else, it's safe to double it just to be sure, as like an insurance policy.
Right. Good point. Thank you. Here's another powder tincture question. Can you tell me the difference between a mushroom extract powder and a tincture? Is one better than the other? Are the tinctures more bioavailable? Oh, the bioavailability question is great.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to answer this one, Joni? Because I know you're really up on this. You just wrote that. I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, well, we can both do it. Why don't I do the powder versus tincture? And I'd love to hear your take on bioavailability. Yeah. So the the difference between it's interesting because a mushroom extract powder, the first thing you have to be aware of, and it goes back to the whole quality thing, is what kind of mushroom powder did you buy? Because you want to make sure that the powder you're using is a mushroom extract, that it's not just, mushrooms that have been like grown and then ground up into a powder. They have to be the medicine of the mushroom, the beta glucans and the terpenes and all the other components that make up the kind of the therapeutic benefits in the mushroom are trapped in the chitin, which is what makes up the exoskeleton or the form of the mushroom. It also makes up the skeleton of an insect. And so you have to heat that mushroom up to release it into the water. So you heat it up in like water, and that the medicine gets released into the water. And what we do at Real Mushrooms is we then take that water and we spray dry it into a powder. And then we add some of what's called the mark, which is that mushroom that's been kind of heated in the water. We also add that back in. You can also take that powder and add water to it and turn it into a tincture. So basically the way we make our mushroom extract powders, it's basically been a liquid that's been turned into a powder. With a tincture, tinctures are made many different ways. Sometimes they don't even heat up the mushrooms. They just, they do a process where they, kind of put it in water or alcohol for a while without heating it up.
They grind it really, really small.
They grind it small, and so
that solution, but it kind of goes in. It kind of becomes dispersed in the liquid.
Yeah, and so that heating process doesn't happen, and that's in some cases. Some tincture companies do heat up their mushrooms, but then you have to think about how much mushroom is actually in there and how much liquid is in there. And as Jordan posted, and I took a really deep dive because I was really curious about this. And I was very curious about why Real Mushrooms wasn't making a tincture. Our parent company, Namix, has been around for more than 30 years and has been studying mushrooms and creating mushroom products. And why didn't we ever make a tincture? And the reason being is that they never figured out a way to make a tincture that was as potent as a powder, because you need so much liquid. A tincture is mainly liquid. It's very hard to, how much actual mushroom is in that liquid tincture, and how do you, what you're looking for is a high beta glucan content, and it's very hard to get a high beta glucan content in a tincture. Some tinctures are made with alcohol. Some are made with glycerin. When you make a tincture with glycerin, you actually need more liquid. You need more glycerin to preserve it. And so, I guess, I don't know if I'm really sharing what the difference is, but basically the way we make our mushroom powders is basically a liquid that's been turned into a powder. Basically, and highly, highly concentrated. Hope that's not too confusing, but what about the bioavailability issue? Because there's so much misinformation out there right now about tinctures being more bioavailable, and that might be true with herbs, but how does that relate to mushrooms?
Okay, well, first of all, if they do everything right with making the tincture in terms of doing the hot water extraction of the mushroom to break that chitin cell wall down to get all the goodies out so they are more bioavailable, they're still faced with the fact that you have a liquid environment that you're putting these actives in, and there's physical rules, chemical rules that say there's only so much that can be put into this liquid without it turning into like pudding or something. Yeah. So I think and I think tinctures have a time and place, and in the veterinary realm, when you're talking about little animals or maybe our birds, and pocket pets and things like that, because you don't need as high of a dosage. But there's another consideration that Joni didn't mention, which is that within the mushroom there are water soluble components and there's also fat soluble components. water and fat, water and oil don't mix. And so that's hard to get a formula where you can have both of them in there in a liquid context of sufficient potency to make a difference in the patient or in the individual. So that's where the powders can be very convenient. And, the powders do blend very well with liquid. I made up my own liquids with our powders just to give to my cats and cordyceps. And, it's kind of a slurry and it's kind of thick. I don't think it's really a good commercial product, but it works at home, and it's something you could do as well if you prefer that liquid format. But when Joni was talking about what we do to get all the goodies out of that very fibrous cell wall, that's what makes our powders bioavailable. And if a tincture would do the same thing as far as the hot water extract, then even though it would be less potent and in liquid format, that would also be bioavailable. One wouldn't be more bioavailable than the other by virtue of the format of the product, whether it's a powder or a liquid. It's more bioavailable because you've done that hot water extraction and possibly even that alcohol extraction if you're doing the dual extraction as with our reishi. So I think that kind of
well, another issue related to the bioavailability, I've heard it talked about in some groups about how the liquid gets into the bloodstream. Like it's the fact that mushrooms are digested or they become bioavailable in the gut. And so it's not a matter of like, it gets in through the mucous membranes in your mouth if it's a liquid or anything like that. I mean, that's the other part.
Does it mean that it's some kind of sublingual absorption?
Or something, I've heard all kinds of things, and it's like it's just the nature of how mushrooms become bioavailable.
And the beta glucans, they need to contact the immune cells that line the bowel, and then they get activated. The alcohol soluble components like the terpenes, they could be absorbed transdermally or transcutaneously, but then you probably need to have a stronger alcohol solution to do that. And I don't know many pets that like to have more alcohol. The two-legged animal is the only one that really seems to like alcohol.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
I hope that helps.
That's a lot of words.
Yeah, it's a lot of words. Next question. What mushrooms would you recommend for my 55-pound Aussie who was recently diagnosed with prostate cancer, transitional cell carcinoma? He currently does not have clinical symptoms. However, the tumor is 1.43 centimeters. Also, what would be the best dosage for the powder?
Okay, well, I'm thinking about chaga. But I think, why just do chaga alone when you can do it paired with 4 other potent anti-cancer mushrooms as in the 5 defenders? So that is what I would suggest, is go with the 5 defenders, and depending on your Aussie's palate, the powder could be cost effective and easier to give than the capsules, but I would then go with the capsules, probably the larger capsules. You'll need fewer of them for a dog that size. In terms of dosage for that dog, I would probably go with 2 large capsules twice daily, or a half a teaspoon to a teaspoon twice daily. I'd start low, see how he does. I'm sure they're also treating the TCC probably with something such as piroxicam, which is an NSAID and a COX-2 inhibitor. There's classically what we do. There now is a chemotherapy agent that they use for these as well. That may not be in the future for your dog.
Yeah. And since we're talking about chaga for this dog, we should give another shout out for this really amazing special we're doing, where you can get 3 bottles of mushrooms. You can get 2 bottles of chaga and 1 bottle of cordyceps for the price of 1 bottle. For $19.99, you get 3 bottles. And that's because these bottles are coming to near their best use by dates. But as Doc Rob said in the beginning of this Facebook Live, we've done stability testing and have discovered that our mushrooms are actually good for 3 years, not 2 years. So these bottles should have an extra year on them, where they're going to be, perfectly good to use. So anyone out there listening who is using chaga for their pet or cordyceps, now's the time to stock up for sure. $19.99. Next question. Judith says 90 90-pound puppy and 5 defenders. What would be the dosage for powder and capsules? No health issues. Oh, great. You're getting started proactively.
Probably half a teaspoon of powder, which would be 1,000 milligrams, or 2 capsules, 1 capsule twice daily for a young puppy that's healthy.
Awesome. Cindy says, I know from these wonderful podcasts, you have informed me that reishi and lion's mane are supportive mushrooms for a dog who has grand mal seizures. Please advise. He is 39 pounds. I guess she wants to know what the dosage would be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and certainly I'm hopeful you're using other treatment modalities as well as the mushrooms. I wouldn't depend on them. But for the reishi and the lion's mane, you would probably get maybe the capsule form of the reishi, maybe the powder form of the lion's mane. So for 39 pounds with something serious like a grand mal seizure, I'd probably go with a capsule twice daily of the reishi, and a half a teaspoon twice daily of the lion's mane. I think that would give a pretty good amount to give. We don't have studies to go by that say use this much for this problem, but that's shooting from my hip.
Yeah, it's a good shot.
It's, I'm an integrative vet. I've been in practice for 40 years, and we try to find solutions to problems that conventional medicine doesn't have. And so oftentimes I will try new supplements, new herbs, new mushrooms, and I kind of have to shoot from the hip to get a dosage going. And so over the years, I think I've developed some skills there.
Judith is asking if you could give that dosage again because she wasn't able to write it down. Do you recall what that dosage?
I said half a teaspoon twice daily of the lion's mane and 1 capsule twice daily of the large reishi capsules.
Okay, I hope you got that, Judith. Yeah. So Kathy is asking, any tips on feeding my 14-year-old Springer the powders? He'll fight me on a big pill.
Well, it depends which powders you're using and why you're using them. As I mentioned, lion's mane, tremella, and cordyceps are 3 of the most tasty mushroom extracts, as is our maitake, as is our shiitake. It's the reishi and turkey tail and chaga that kind of bring in a little bit of bitterness and challenge to our taste buds.
Yeah.
So depending what you're wanting to use, Kathy, it might not be an issue at all for your picky 14-year-old Springer.
Yeah, I like to mix the powders with bone broth, or depending on, how you're feeding, or if you're a raw feeder, I kind of hide it inside a meatball or something like that. But I mean, I'm surprised we actually don't get very much feedback about pets that won't take the mushroom powder. I mean, except, cats.
It does seem as though it's fairly widely powdered.
Yeah.
But I'm always, trying to kind of talk to everybody.
Sure, absolutely. Sabra says, I heard the last bit of an answer. I have a 14-pound Chiweenie that unfortunately is, end of life from lymphoma, and on turkey tail once a day of your real mushroom. Can I up the dose? Can upping bring any additional comfort? So sorry, Sabra.
Definitely up the dose. I hope that it will bring additional comfort. I certainly couldn't guarantee that. I don't know, anything about the nature of your dog's disease. But I would look at that, and maybe even, if you're giving the turkey tail in a capsule form, maybe try switching to the 5 defenders to give a little broader spectrum of activity, and up the dosage of that. I would use the same dosage of the turkey 5 defenders as of the turkey tail, and I would double or triple that dosage. Yeah.
We'll be thinking of you. I think we have time for one more question. Gosh, this has gone by so fast, Doc Rob.
Mm-hmm. It sure has.
Sabra is also saying, by the way, both my Chiweenies love when I sprinkle the turkey tail over their food and mix with water. They gobble it up. Thank you. Yeah, I'm always surprised. When we first started, I'm like, oh, our dog's going to eat it, and cats certainly won't. And I constantly get corrected. People saying that their cats, even the 5 defenders, they just gobble it right up. So yeah,
The things that dogs eat, they definitely don't have a human palate.
yeah, totally.
Mhm.
Totally. Okay, we can do one more question. We got 1 minute left.
Mhm.
My 39-pound doodle is on zonisamide and a Keppra ER. Will the Lions Mane and Reishi be safe?
Yes, no problem.
Yeah,
And
that was
may even help them work better, for all we know.
awesome.
Those
Well,
are for epilepsy, by the way, for those
yeah,
unaware.
yep. You answered that question. Oh, no, it's it. Okay. Our time's up. Zip. Um, just enough time to yet again mention our threefer that we're offering. Two chaga mushroom for pets and one cordyceps, which would be a 65% savings on the three of them. $19.95 for 3 bottles. I can't encourage people enough to stock up on these mushroom products. They're going to be good for a year after the best use by date on the bottle, and there's no downside. Anytime you add mushrooms, even if your pet is healthy, it's a nice proactive choice. So, any last words, Doc Rob?
I want to know where Jordan put your blog on tinctures, because I think it's a very important blog, and it really encapsulates everything we've talked about tonight.
Yeah, and thanks. And it's so much easier for me to write about it than to just say it.
I'm here.
There's so much to explain. So if what I shared made no sense,
The blog would be really good for them to read if they.
the blog really it's long. It's a long read, but it really helps you understand about quality, bioavailability. Another thing we didn't get to is oxidation. There's some. Sometimes I read this stuff and my head feels like it's going to explode, talking about how our powders will oxidize the minute you open the bag. Well, it's 3-year stability testing.
Well, and, did anyone mention that mushrooms are antioxidants, which
That's right too.
automatic food preservatives?
Yeah.
So they last longer because they are antioxidants.
Exactly. And beta glucans are highly stable. So, they just don't, they stay good for a really, really long time. So anyway, it's been so much fun. Doc Rob, always a pleasure. I always learn so much.
Likewise for you.
And Jordan, our amazing Jordan Swain, who you got to. She's going to be out more. She's going to be out in front of the camera more and more. She's an incredible wealth of knowledge about mushrooms, and we'll see you next month. Same place. Bye bye.